We all fight our inner demons every day. For me, one that has crept up in different levels of intensity my entire life has been anxiety. Um, it's funny because one of the things I've used to manage that pretty effectively has been art, which is weird because I was using artist therapy since I was 6 before I even knew art was therapy. It's just weird as an adult because turning my love of art into a career has somehow, at different phases, has turned the art into the enemy. Sort of the pressure of making art within a deadline has turned it into a stressor itself. So it's weird how it's been recontextualized, and yet art is still the solution for me. So when I was a kid, I remember constantly stressing, putting this emphasis on make sure that if I had an art assignment, or maybe any assignment really, when I was in school, was to try to turn it in first. This idea that somehow there was like merit, extra value to being first. I just put so much stress and pressure on myself that like I was in second grade getting a gray hair. Like it was weird. And it's strange because the reality of the situation, at least when it comes to art as a business, like it can be good to turn things early, but if you have amount of time that has been given to you, you should use up that time as much as possible until you've exhausted like every ounce of idea or effort, energy to give yourself the best placement. So when you do turn in that artwork, that piece, that you gave it your all, and you gave yourself as much time as possible to achieve the best, highest quality for what it is that you're actually making. So there's nothing worse, which is something that I faced when I was in second grade, and I somehow still managed to make the same mistake over and over again, is turning in something early and thinking that like you're cool and awesome, and then I don't know, a day or two goes by and then everyone else's assignments start showing up, and then you realize that you squandered your time. That people who invest in themselves more in the process and enjoying the process ended up making higher quality work that was more thoughtful because they gave their minds the time to actually explore. So I want you to hopefully keep that in mind when you're in the act of creation. It's very interesting because there's this weird duality where, let's say you've been given an art assignment, either for school or work, and immediately okay, well, how much time do I have? And you can dwell on that. So every time you're trying to come up with a fresh new idea, you're thinking about how much time you have. And then it becomes counterproductive, or you end up not creating the best work. You just create work that is the first thing that pops into your head. So going back to this idea of having these deadlines, you can find yourself spiraling out of control about the what if scenarios, or what if I'm gonna fail, or what am it's not gonna be good enough. And I find if you can get into the right mindset and start making the art, start thinking, start going through the process, turns out that the enemy of anxiety is actually creation. So by turning on your creative mind, focusing on the solutions to that problem, you end up kind of canceling out the noise of the anxiety. This anxiety in general is just like this perpetual loop of what ifs, and it can cycle out of control. And I think it's hard to keep perspective, but I think it's necessary to really remind yourself that you can only do what you can that's within your control. If you worry about all the what ifs, and you're gonna end up like I have in the past, I guess, like dying 1,000 times and feeling the pain of 1,000 deaths, yet you haven't died at all. But in your mind, it was so real that you've gone through all these dire situations in your head about the different levels of failure. Maybe you're like me and you're like, well, okay, well, what if I don't deliver what I promised to my boss? I failed to estimate correctly. I delivered it late. It wasn't good enough. What if I get fired? What if I lose my job? What if I don't have money for rent? What if I lose my home, end up on the streets? What if you end up dying on the streets? I don't know if it sounds funny to you or not, or if you've gone through that spiral, but I know, at least for me, I have had, I started my career being a freelance illustrator. And I started collecting different skills along the way because I never wanted to be out of work. I always wanted to be able to be like I can do that person. If something comes up, I can apply to that job and try to make sure that I'm constantly employed. And that has, in some ways, it's been a double-edged sword. Because while you think, having a wider breadth of knowledge can help keep you employed, and it really varies, because you come to the realization that these bigger studios, at least, don't want generalists. They want specialists. And if you spread yourself so thin, trying to do like illustration, typography, motion graphics, 3D, animation, lighting, rendering, I mean, these are all important things to know. And if you have the benefit of ending up in an art director position, I think you will be amazing at that job if you know all these different skill sets. However, if you are starting off and trying to do all these different things at once, you're going to end up without gaining momentum, and you're not going to be good enough to compete against anybody. And that is the inherent struggle. Like, knowing a lot of different things is good later on, I believe, but not early on. The only people who are going to want to work with you early on, if you have some level of competency in all those different skill sets, is probably going to be a smaller studio that's going to exploit you as much as possible for their benefit, because they're saving money. And the the end result is, and believe me, I've done it, you get employed, which is great, you're getting money, which is also great, but the work that you have at the end is never really going to be good enough to get you the next job, because all these jobs end at some point, unfortunately, and they seem to end more frequently than they used to, thanks to the way all these corporations are structured, the pressure from stakeholders to show constant return on investment. It only benefits them if they eliminate you as soon as possible once they no longer need you, so that they can show more profit or lower operating costs. And that's just the true nature of our field right now, especially in games. In animation, I think it's always been kind of common to be laid off at the end of a season or hiatus, and then hopefully you get picked up on the next one. That doesn't seem to be as common anymore, at least if you are working in LA in the animation industry now. I mean, the productions are in Canada or in Spain or in Ireland or somewhere in Asia. So there's no longer a guarantee that the work's going to come back because of tax incentives, which is why these studios are moving productions elsewhere. And the funny thing is I even hear, international studios that are in Spain or New Zealand, Australia, complaining that they're not getting work. The industry's in a bit of a downturn right now, so there aren't really any guarantees. But if you focus on all that, I think you're going to drive yourself crazy. I've come up with some different strategies for coping with my anxiety over the years. And I've tried the drugs, and I can tell you my experience with them. And I think if you were going to try any of the medications, you should definitely consult your doctor to make sure that you're safe. But the things that I've found recently that have worked for me, oddly enough, simply enough, one of them was magnesium. I have found just taking 200 milligrams of chelated magnesium a day has made me feel more normal than I've felt in years. It has been a lifesaver, and it's strange. It's so simple, but it's my understanding that our bodies burn up magnesium with stress, and because of industrial farming, the soil is not as rich in nutrients as it used to be, so you have to get supplements to kind of make up the difference. It's worked for me, it's worked for my wife. I'm not sure if it's necessarily going to work for everyone, but like I said, talk to your doctor about it. One that's safe and innocuous is meditation. Meditation for me, I've tried it on and off throughout the years, and right now I'm back on. I do, I think, was it like 10 deep breaths with 7-second inhales, 10-second exhales, with a little pause between each breath. And I also hum during the exhale. And the reason why you hum is important. So the vagus nerve is what's responsible for your flight or fight response. So if you can hum, you can try to relax the vagus nerve, because the vagus nerve runs from your brain through your entire body. And the humming is actually causes like a relaxation to the nerve. So if you can give that a shot, I think you might find some benefit. The thing about meditation for me is that I've noticed that it has just allowed me to not overreact to things quickly. So it buys me time to have a calm response as opposed to a frantic one. And it has been very helpful, and I think it might be able to help you too. One of the other things that I've tried is from a book that I read regarding stress management, was creating an alternate persona of yourself. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with Stoicism, but with Stoicism, they have this idea that the muse is with you when you're creating art. And if, let's say, for example, that day you did not create something up to your standards, the muse was not with you that day. So it's sort of creating an effect of the other. Because us as artists, our identities are intertwined with what we do, for better or worse. And this ability to kind of, I guess, lay responsibility or share responsibility with this other part of us that's not us can help make sure that our self-worth and value is maintained. Because in order for us to create the best work, I feel like we have to be really invested, but yet at the same time, whether we do good art or bad art, it shouldn't change the value that we feel our lives have. And that's a difficult thing to separate. But that brings me to this other idea of creating an alternate identity. And one of the things, so I want you to picture what the ideal version of you, or the ideal person would be that would be making art, would be like. So would that person be calm under pressure? Would he be more James Bond-like, high stakes, no problem, no sweat, bullets whizzing by? Is he going to be more like Batman, which, pure grit and determination? He's going to be able to handle whatever problems come his way against the odds. I want you to try to think about what your version of that person would be. And then when you get put into these stressful situations, try to turn on that mode. Try to emulate, be that person. Talk to yourself to get into that mode, that mindset. I think after a couple of times of trying that, it helps. It helps because eventually, through mimicry, you emulating that person, you start to imbue some of the positive traits of that person, and you slowly mold yourself into becoming more like that. But maybe you're more of a pessimist, right? So I read a different book called The Pessimist's Guide to Happiness. And in that book, or I could be conflating that with another book about Memento Mori, or Memento Mori was also mentioned in that book. But so I'll mention Memento Mori as well. The thing is, in that, try to picture the worst case scenario. Then, let's say for me, it's being homeless, right? Maybe it's living in your car, living on the streets. Try to actually live that for a day. So if your fear is, being homeless, maybe try sleeping in your car overnight and see what that experience is like. I'm sure it won't be fun. It's not great, but you're still alive. And there's still opportunity for change. So like nothing is the end, right? As long as you have breath in your lungs, there's still a fighting chance for you to turn your situation around. Now the idea of memento mori, Latin for, I think, remember the dead, right? We all die. No matter what we do in this mortal coil, we're all going to end up in the same place. So perspective of us trying to stress out about, is me turning in these 12 icons by tomorrow, or, doing a motion graphics edit that's due in 2 hours. Like, success or failure, how is it going to matter in the grand scheme of things? We put so much pressure on ourselves, and we imagine, because of our creative minds, the worst possible outcomes. And then all we end up doing, like I mentioned earlier, is feeling the death blow of that possible negative outcome before it's even occurred. And, I've gone through that a lot. And it's not necessary. And I like to think and hope that over the years that I've gotten better with managing these feelings. And I don't know if part of that is just with age. Part of it, maybe along with age, is the life experience. It's something that struck me kind of hard when thinking about the fires. I live in Pasadena. The fires were the Eaton fires. I'm not sure when you're listening to this, but this is May of 2025. The fires were in January of 2025. I mean, I could see the fires from my apartment. I was about 3 miles away, give or take. A mile, I suppose. So you would think 3 miles, 4 miles, we're safe from the fires. I mean, I can see the mountains and I can see them burning, but it's 3 miles, right? Like, there's no way. And then the winds were 100 miles per hour. I mean, it swallowed up, I think, like a mile or two within an evening. It was insane. Even if the fires didn't reach us, the smoke definitely did, and the fumes were so toxic that I was having lung spasms within 2 hours of the flame starting. And it was freaky, it was scary, but we survived. And I like to, when I'm feeling stressed and when the stakes start to overcome me a bit, I remember that feeling when things were really bad. And it puts things into perspective of the trivial nature of some of our anxieties, or at least some of my anxieties that I experience throughout the workday. And, things don't get much more scary and final than having the flames slowly choke you, or if you're even closer, burn your home down and potentially you. really, it's tragic, but I try to take these moments as like milestones to reflect on when I need to remind myself of how feeling stressed can create so much tension and inflammation in your body that it can manifest physically. So when they say in your head, obviously these things are real, they're coming from a real place, but you thinking about the stressors is what's causing your body to have a physical response. But there are other reasons for you to feel that way. Some people have autoimmune conditions that their bodies have higher levels of inflammation in general, so it doesn't take much to push them over the edge. Sometimes the anxiety is actually one of the symptoms of the autoimmune condition. So you can't necessarily completely rule that out either. But definitely a key component is to try to keep a level head as much as possible. And no one's perfect, we're all human. But, so at least for me, I'm going to therapy trying to figure out these pains. And one of the tools that I learned, because for me, feeling physical pain in my body from stress was causing me to have panic. I'm not exactly sure what the official term is, but I call it immediate awareness of your space. And if you can, let's say for example, you're feeling stress, like you're feeling pain in your body, you're starting to feel anxious, maybe it's starting to bubble up into something, into a full-blown panic attack. Try to think about the part of your body that feels no pain. And for me, that's always been my toes. It's the go-to. My toes never hurt. I guess they're perfect toes. Thinking about my toes, how they're calm, there's no pain there, there's no tension, helps redirect my mind to focusing on that, to break the cycle of stress, of anxiety, the loop. If you are, let's say, in a room and there's paintings on the wall or art prints, whatever, like let's say for example for me, I have a poster of Godzilla from -1. I'll stare at the poster, I'll start looking at the frame, the details, the waves in the image, how the waves are forming around a battleship that's been crushed, the weather in the photo, Godzilla, the design itself, just every little detail, right? Or even better, you can do this if you go out for a walk. Walks are really great throughout the day to calm your nerves, especially if there's trees. Same thing, right? In my neighborhood, go out for a walk in the middle of after an hour, take a break. Look at the leaves, look at the patterns on the trees, the way the light goes through them, creates the pattern on the floor, the bark, all the little nuanced patterns on the bark. Are there ants living on the bark? Listening to the birds, where they're living, bouncing around, jumping around. The squirrels also being playful, running up and down the trees. Hear the gust of wind as you're walking, the blades of grass on the neighbor's yard. Just really focusing on the details, appreciate what's there, can help break you out of your mind. Or even if you're in the shower, like I find out, for some reason my mind, better or worse, is always thinking a lot in the shower. Just feel the water hitting your body, focusing on that sound of each drop hitting you, the steam, trying to just free your mind, empty it out so that you can experience just the tactile feeling of your environment. I think it's really important. I also think taking a break every hour is just good in general for your artwork, because if you can take a break every hour, you can come back with fresh eyes. You see something that you hadn't have seen. Like if you were working 3 hours straight, you might have been going down a path. Let's say you're drawing, you won't notice that the perspective is off because you've just been so busy just trying to shade a form that you forgot to see the bigger picture, or the values are off and the three-dimensional form's flattening. You didn't notice because you were so focused on the myopic nature of what you were doing. So I think it's really important to take a break. I also think that, I'll tell you my experience with the drugs before I do the last part. I've taken Ativan, I've taken Lexapro, and Lexapro works for me. It did end up dehydrating my body, so I stopped taking it. And there's no harm in taking it. Our lives are, I don't think our evolution as humans was not designed to exist in the world that we do with the pressures that we have, right? Like our fight and flight response was designed to run away from panthers and tigers, right? Not like deadlines and work politics. So we need, mental support by either taking medications, something to calm our nerves, do what's necessary to have a normal life, right? Because you gotta make a life worth living. For me, the only thing is, none of this stuff is free, right? So I know with Lexapro, dehydration, took the Ativan, I felt numb, I felt relaxed, but I was having sleep deprivation throughout the night, which only kind of created more anxiety in a different way the following day. So I decided to try to do without, and that's when I went back to meditation. And meditation did help, but the drugs, they're there. But, talk to your doctor, and if it's right for you, do what you need to do. But also, non-drug, I think, I don't know if I can speak for every artist, but I think on some level we're narcissistic. I think in order to be good at our craft, we have to be selfish, self-absorbed to some degree, to focus on giving ourselves enough time to develop, which usually means pushing our loved ones away so that we can focus, pushing our friends away so we're not going out so we can get better. But I think all that self-involvement ends up making what are probably small problems to everyone else big problems to us, and we balloon those things into crises. So if we can get out of that, let's say get a little furry buddy, right, like a cat or a dog or even a little bunny rabbit, caring for them gives you another sense of purpose. I think kids do that too, but kids is a huge commitment just to de-stress, right? And I'm not sure how effective that is considering everything else that comes with them. But I have a cat. I love my cat. I've found that my cat has she has some weird sixth sense. She knows when I'm stressed, and she'll come up to me to break my chain of thought, and I refocus on her. And I find it really helpful that I have to make sure that she's content, she's happy, she's fed, and she in turn, comes around, shows me affection, love, and I swear she wants to be my therapist because she shows up at the right time all the time. Just happy she's not charging me. It's insane. If you have a dog, same thing. Plus, you get to, or are forced to walk them outside, and I think that's good for both of you. So I just wanted to make this video, let you guys know, if you're suffering, you're not alone. If you've turned to art as an escape, like I did when I was a kid, for me, art was, I was bullied a lot as a kid. I was also left alone a lot as a kid. Both my parents were working. I had a lot of free time by myself, and art was a way to fill that void. It gave me purpose when I had none. Like I said, it was therapy for me when I didn't know it was therapy. And if I never got paid another dollar for whatever art I made, I'd still be making art. I didn't know it was that important for me. And unfortunately for us, I don't know how many, if you came to art as a happy kid, good for you. Maybe you don't see things the same way I do, but at least for me, it was essential, and it is essential for my life. But because, you know, you're making art, you're self-reflecting, you develop a sensitivity to the world because you're focused on the details. And it's that same thought process, I think, that in the future can self-sabotage you, because then you become focused on the stressful details. So, like I mentioned earlier, I just think it's vital to really try to keep a sense of scope, and that can be challenging. Anyhow, like I said, you're not alone. I hope that these different tricks that I've learned over time can help you cope so that you can be happy, functional, purposeful individuals. And I wish you well, and enjoy the rest of the video. you.